Today's video is all about Brad Holmes' press conference. I'm doing takeaways here. Watched it. My 7 takeaways from this press conference. A lot to do, obviously, with this offseason. Let's get this video started. Question before we get started, what Detroit Lions player do you want the Lions to re-sign that's a free agent right now? Blow up the comment section with your answer. Again, this video is all about the takeaways from Brad Holmes' press conference. I'm going to give you my thoughts, spend time going over it, and it's really a lot to go over because, in all honesty, he gave a lot away and he spoke, and it was good to see him, be this up front. And so this is what we're going to do and get into it for this video here really quick. And when I go through the takeaways really quick, I want to do my first takeaway, and I think that he talked about the coordinators that got asked about for sure. What are the Lions going to do with the coordinators? Are you concerned? And Brad Holmes is not concerned at all. The way that he says it, he's like, hey, we're just lucky that we had these guys this year because he fully expected them to be gone next year. And I agree with him. I think that's, it was a luxury to get these guys, but at the same time, as you know, everyone's got to go different directions. The coordinators got to get better. But he has full and complete and utter faith in Dan Campbell to get the job done, to find coordinators to help this team out. Not just coordinators, but also all of the coaches that were lost. He fully expects that to happen. Just like he was saying with scouting, it's the same thing with developing coaches and getting the right coaches that are Detroit Lions coaches. Just same with players he talked about. You got to get the same players that are Detroit Lions players. Then you got to get the same players that are for the Detroit Lions, for the coaching staff. So same type of philosophy right there. What current Detroit Lions free agent do you want the Lions to re-sign? That is one of the big questions for today's video. Next one here, he spoke about injuries, and the injuries was a very difficult process for Brad Holmes and this, scouting department. He said in one day, it was after the Thanksgiving Day game, he had to find 3 players to bring onto the team, and he said, that's a commitment of 3 weeks. He's never done that before. Extremely difficult, but he said the process of identifying players before the season, if there's injuries, that you can call upon them to come right away. They said they did such a great process that as soon as one went down, they had the numbers to call up. He also talked about the trading when we had to go and obviously get Zadarius Smith, how difficult the process was. He said started with this amount of people, and then as soon as you find out it's like this, and teams are not giving up their starters, talking about 2, 3, and it was a really difficult process. He wanted to get, I'm sure, other names, but he just believed you'd probably have to give up an arm and a leg, the franchise, to get one of those players that we liked, i.e., like a Crosby, right? So he talked about that process. It was difficult for him to deal with, but they were smart, and to get to 15 wins, he feels like from a scouting department and finding personnel, they did great. And I think they did as best as you could do with all the injuries that they sustained. Today's show is sponsored by Game Time, the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets to sport events, concerts, comedy shows, or whatever. Their lowest price is guaranteed. That's the Game Time guaranteed. And going to a game is much better being in the house. The Bulls are coming to Detroit to face the Pistons on Saturday, and if you want to get some of those tickets, you need to check out Game Time. And our friends from Game Time has a new feature. What it's called is Game Time Picks, and what it does, it filters out all the fluff. You get the best deals and tickets, so you're not spending hours trying to find the best seats and deals to get those tickets. Now, how do you get that? How do you find this? Well, go into Game Time, get the app, select the venue you want to go to, get into a 3D view. Select the Game Times pick button on top of the screen and automatically does the research for you, and it filters out the tickets in the database, give the best deals and seats. You're not spending hours on a bunch of different ticketing sites trying to find the best tickets. You can also get exclusive flash deals and tickets for football, baseball, basketball, concerts, and more. In the middle screenshot, by the way, I think it's a fantastic feature of the app. It shows you where your seat is. If you move a phone left to right, you can see the surrounding area kind of like a 3D live photo. Also, all pricing is right there for you. There's no hidden fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Do you want a quick deal? Well, if you're new to Game Time, you plug in Chat Sports and you're going to get $20 off your very first purchase. How do you do that? You go to the redeem code section, you plug in Chat Sports, you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms should apply. You got to create and an email to save that money. The link is going to be in the comment section and description of this video. So if you're buying Lions tickets this year, make sure you're using Game Time. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets and lowest prices guaranteed. I also talked about the offensive line and how the offensive line needs to be in continuity. He really got emotional with the offensive line. I thought he was really into it, that this offensive line, they're committed to making sure it stays very strong. They spoke about Kevin Zeitler. Now, I told about the video I made the other day ago about Kevin Zeitler's wife is ready for a season 14. I think the Lions are bringing Kevin Zeitler back from the way that Brad Holmes spoke. But interesting, he didn't talk about Graham Glasgow, but he talked about Christian Mahogany taking that next step. So if they do bring back Zeitler, I think it's a possibility that Mahogany could be moved to left guard. He also talked about Giovanni Manu, how when they first got him, he's extremely raw, but at the end of the practice, he looked magnificent. The development of the young offensive lineman is on course, and that's great because a lot of people were upset when we drafted Giovanni Manu. A lot of people did not want to get Giovanni Manu here because he was a developmental prospect. But at the same time, now look, folks, we got I think we're going to have a hell of a solid backup left tackle in Giovanni Manu. And I think that Christian Mahogany, he's going to be awesome. So the offensive line is developing. We're not even drafting players to make it even better or add any players. It's just the players that we drafted last year are coming to their own right now, and that's great. Rank Brad Holmes of all the general managers in the NFL 1 if you think he's the best, 32 if you are a Bears fan. He talked about Kerby Joseph. They asked him about re-signing Kerby Joseph, and I do think that the Detroit Lions are going to re-sign Kerby Joseph because he was gushing all over J. Kerb. He said he's all pro, he should be in the Pro Bowl. He had 9 interceptions. He says he is a Detroit Lion. He is built to be a Detroit Lion. Fully expect Kerby Joseph to get extended. That's great news because he is a big part of this defense. You're going to have Brian Branch, you're going to have Kerby Joseph locked up. You already know Aiden Hutchinson. Ali McNeil was locked up, right? You have Jack Campbell. He's the future. We don't know what's going on with Derek Barnes. We know Alex Anzalone is going to be here. So the core, the big names of the Lions defense looks like they're going to be staying here for the foreseeable future. And that's great news for our Lions because I love J. Kerb. I love Kerby Joseph. I think he's a phenomenal player. And for him to be staying the long term makes me happy. He also talked about the NFL draft here, and they're going to stay the course the exact same way they have been doing it since they have been here. It is the same course. The BPA at pick 28, or if they feel a player sliding, they will move up in the draft. They're not going to just go for needs. And we have to talk about this. Even Brad Holmes spoke about this. He goes, we doubled up on corner last year. Not necessarily needed. They're going to identify their Lion players. That's who they're going to go for. He talked about we drafted inside linebacker. He talked about they're just going to go that way. So when we do mock drafts this year, or if you're wanting a specific player, great chance it's just going to be BPA. And that's how he goes. He identifies his players. Now, he talked about also that Jared Goff, too, right? And he talked about the coaching staff. It's part of the process. We're going to lose good coaches. You want to keep good coaches. We're going to lose good coaches. And he fully expects Jared Goff to maintain, even without Ben Johnson, a high level of play, full high level of play. So fully expect that they believe Jared Goff is going to stay at that high level. They do. They fully expect it. And, I mean, we extended him, right? So, best believe they expect that. Going on. He says that there's going to be players that we're going to be losing that we like, too. You know, he's like, that's part of the bad process. Obviously, you know, you lose players, you gain players, all of that. That's part of it. We're going to talk about Carlton Davis in a second. So what current Detroit Lions free agent do you want the Lions to re-sign? name one player. It could be a Carlton Davis. It could be Skip. Let me know in the comments below. Talked about Carlton Davis. He wasn't as high as on Carlton Davis. I felt like he was some other players like Kevin Zeitler or even a Kerby Joseph, because they're talked about specific players. But he did say we traded for him. He got better. They felt like from what he was last year in Tampa, from here. He didn't get fully committed to it. So again, this is a question mark here. We don't really know. This could be a tactic, right? For re-signing players or whatever. So he didn't really touch, I thought, a lot on the Carlton Davis situation, more than he did other players that he was really happy about. So we'll see that going forward of what type of, or who they're going to bring back, right? I don't know about the Carlton Davis end of that one. But that was the extent of what Brad Holmes spoke about, and it's still maintaining the same course. And I know he really did talk about the trades, how difficult it is, and he learned a lot going through that difficult period when we were losing a lot of pass rushers and we were losing players to injury and his freak accidents and all that, and he learned about the trade process, and it's quite difficult. So we're going to be hearing a lot. We hear a lot of trade rumors. We've heard it this past offseason. We've heard it throughout the years. Just understand that Brad Holmes, he really does try, and it does seem like that, obviously it takes two to tango, and he talked about the process of re-signing players too. It takes two to tango. It's the player and their, representatives and us. So it's not just that the Lions would want a player to come back, all of that. You got to have the both parties wanting this to occur. So that is phenomenal news right there, folks. Make sure you hit that notification bell. Subscribe to the channel. We're dropping videos every single day, even in the off season. With that said, folks, adios.